Alright, now that you guys have created a texture for your snow using the procedural noise and the blend material and the noise texture, uh, I want to pause right there with the texturing. Now I want to create a snowman. Now to do this, I want to get rid of our terrain for a second here, and we'll bring it back later. So I want to introduce you to the display layers area. I don't know if I've gotten to this before, but if you open your channel box, which is the top one in the corner, you'll have a displayers layer, and there's nothing there at the moment, but I can select an object and I can do a couple of things. I can say, hey, I was waiting for the pop-up to come up, but this icon will basically add a new layer and assign the objects to it. I guess it shows up down here. You can read, create a new layer and assign selected objects. We'll do that. Nothing seems to happen, but unclick it. You'll notice a V and you'll see layer 1. I'm going to double click that and name this terrain layer and save it. And the V is for visible. You can select it. If you click off of it, now I have a little bug. I'm using an older version, and apparently the hotfix didn't fix it. But you should the V should go away. So it's visible and non-visible. In the middle box, it's going to show, you can see like a wireframe, which is visible, but it's not in your way. You're not going to accidentally select it, which is nice sometimes when you're working. You want to see the environment, but you don't want to accidentally, if you're working on a specific part of it. The wireframe, and I think it may say have a T on there for template. Again, I have some sort of GUI bug here, so I'm going to leave mine like that. So I can't select it. I think this is template view. But anyway, now what I begin creating is not going to automatically be put on that layer. It's not like Photoshop where this layer is selected and if I start building it's going to automatically go there. No, you have to explicitly select something, create a new layer, add it to the layer. And the way you can create blank layers or new layers with nothing on them, and you can right click and hold. Several tutorials back I talked about contextual menus. Depending on what you're right clicking on, you get different options. So here you're going to have things related to layers versus so I can click something in the scene if there were something in the scene, and I can add selected objects. It's grayed out because I don't have anything selected. You can remove selected objects. Lots of stuff here. You can change the render type or the shading per layer. Set all layers to reference template full detail. Alright, so let's start with our snowman. So I'm going to turn the template layer off, and I'm going to create a sphere. I'll hit F to frame it. And before I do anything, I want to set the pivot point to the bottom. So I'm going to tap the space bar to go into a side view, which it remembers that I was in the hypershade last time, so I'm going to have to actually click my foreview over here. And I hit W. I'm going to pull it up a little bit, and now I want the pivot point to be at the bottom. So I hit the home key, and then I grab and I hold down the V key, which will snap to a vertex. And I want to snap this to the very bottom. And then as I'm moving it, I'm going to hold down the X and snap that to the origin. And so if I rotate it, it's going to rotate around the bottom like that. If I scale, it's going to scale around the bottom like that. So once I have this initial one done, I want to go, it's a little too smooth to be a snowman. So let's beat it up a little bit. And before we do, I just thought of something. You notice how all of these lines come into the center here, and you have quads. Until you get to the very top, you just have a lot of triangles, and you have this point where a lot of things come into it. Those can become pinch points in your render, which is not going to be a big deal in our snowman, but for future reference, that may be something we may have to deal with, is how do we deal with these pinch points in our models so that they're not affecting it negatively. But for now, let's grab our sculpt geometry tool. I'm just going to beat this thing up a little bit. Now, this is a very small sphere. I mean, it's 2 units wide. That's a 1-inch radius. So I'm going to need a really small brush. Yeah, probably about a 0.1. I'm just guessing. Wow, that's even too big. There we go. And I guess we could add a little if we want. Yeah, we want a little more resolution here. So I'm going to go and I could go here and add more resolution, but another way you can do that, I'm going to go to Edit Mesh Smooth, which will increase the resolution as well. And what the smooth does is, some of you may have noticed when you have an object, if you hit 1 versus 3, like with something like a box, if I hit 1 it goes, or 3 it goes into some weird smooth mode. Anyway, what smooth does is it takes actually gives the smooth, it makes it look like the smooth mode, but with all the geometry, all the edges and edge loops and all the polygons. So if I were to smooth that, well, if it were in that shape and I smooth it, anyway, let me get out of that. I digress. Let's stick to the sorry. Let's stick to our snowman. We want to beat this guy up with a and I'll double click this guy. Let's do some pushing and pulling, and I don't want huge influence. Maybe if this is a unit, I probably want a 1/10 of a unit at most. So let's go 0.1 maybe. We need a little bit more than that. How about a 0.5? And I'm just gonna, something doesn't seem right. I wonder if I just have, if this is not correct. I'm thinking that's 1 unit. Maybe I have my grid turned off somehow. Anyway, we're going to go and make this thing look more natural. Oh, I've got the smooth on, that's why. Alright. Knew there was a problem. Yeah, see? 0.5 is way too deep, so let's go probably 0.1. And just going to kind of bang it up and beat it up a little bit, like some kids made it. And I'm going to have some pinched and areas in a while, but if you remember, we still have our excuse me, we still have our smooth here, so we can come back and then smooth this out. And just looking for a good snowball shape. One of the things about computer graphics, you can make things so perfectly, a sphere, a cube, that sometimes I mean, you can obviously tell, oh, that was computer generated, and it's hard sometimes as artists to, because you're using the computer, to go back and then make it look more natural, to give it imperfections, because almost everything in the real world, nothing's completely straight or completely smooth or completely hard-edged, and things like this are going to give it more interest. And you know, if you and while we're still in here, we're component we're moving vertices, we're in component mode, but we can go back into object mode, and suppose I wanted this a little squattier, and alright, that's decent. To me it looks much more like a natural snowball. And there might be some there's nothing too extreme in there. I'm going to go with that. I could play with it a lot more, but now I'm going to go to my side view, and since the pivot point is at the bottom, I'm going to hit W. I can duplicate it and bring it up, and I can scale from the pivot point because it's at the bottom in the center, and I'm duplicated again, and we should have a snowman. But what I don't like about this is they all have the exact same pattern. So what I would do is maybe spin some around. I was going to flip it upside down, but then their pivot point would mess up. Now I'm just going to turn this one to this side some, just, and maybe crunch them down a little bit on each other. Something like that. That's not bad. Alright, the last thing I want to do while we're here, well, two more things. I want to go ahead and parent these correctly. So the head, and shift click the body, hit P. So if I hit this, then the head is selected. And select this, shift select the base, hit P. And now so if I move the bottom, the top moves. If I move the midsection, the head moves. And we may raise this section up just a hair. Alright, and I said there are two things left. The last thing I want to do is add that texture we made. So I'm going to double click the hyper shade and go to my materials, and I want to middle mouse drag this blend one, middle mouse drag onto my object. And so that's another way. I could have also went to right click. We did assign new material, but we would say assign existing material. And it'd be good to go ahead and give it a unique name so we know what it is. So so let's double click here, and we'll say this is our snow mat for snow material. Alright, and that's all we're going to do in this tutorial. In the next one, we're going to pick up with making the arms, maybe put it on a hat and some coal, and in the last tutorial we'll probably bring it all together with the sculpt geometry terrain, and maybe start playing with a little bit of lighting. I hope you've been able to keep up. Let me know on the forums if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.